Sometimes the clearest sign a man has already chosen you isn't in grand gestures, it's in the way he speaks. There's a phrase, a subtle line, he says, that instantly signals he sees you as irreplaceable, that he's decided your connection is his priority. When he talks about we instead of I, when he includes you in his plans, dreams, and even small daily routines, he's silently and powerfully communicating commitment. This isn't about empty promises. It's about the natural, almost instinctive way he prioritizes you with his words. Understanding these signals can save you months of uncertainty, because when a man says this, he's not just interested, he's already chosen you. Recognizing this allows you to step into clarity, see the truth of his feelings, and understand that choice isn't given lightly. It's intentional, thoughtful, and profoundly meaningful. When it comes to understanding a man's intentions, words are far more revealing than actions alone, though both matter. Many people believe that commitment is shown through grand gestures like gifts or dramatic proclamations of love. While these moments are memorable, they often don't reflect the deeper, consistent decision a man makes when he has chosen someone. The reality is that the words he uses day to day in ordinary conversation often carry the most authentic signal of his emotional choice. A man who has chosen you will naturally incorporate language that shows you are included in his life, even when he doesn't consciously realize it. These words are not rehearsed or forced. They emerge organically because he has already aligned his thoughts and priorities around you. The shift from talking in terms of I and me to we and us is subtle but significant. It might be as simple as saying, "We should try that restaurant next weekend," instead of "I want to try that restaurant." On the surface, it seems like a small grammatical choice, almost trivial, yet psychologically it reveals that he has started envisioning a future that involves you, and in his mind, you're no longer separate from his plans. You are part of them. These words signal inclusion, shared experience, and a prioritization that is central to long-term commitment. They show that he sees your presence in his life as something natural and necessary, not optional. Another key aspect of words as commitment signals is consistency. It's not just about saying something once or occasionally, it's about the repetition and reliability of his language. A man who has chosen you will consistently use phrasing that demonstrates care, consideration, and forward thinking. For example, asking, "How was your day?" is common, but asking it with genuine curiosity and following up on the details shows attentiveness and a deeper emotional investment. Similarly, when he talks about future plans, whether it's a holiday, a weekend activity, or even small daily routines, using inclusive language indicates that he is mentally and emotionally factoring you into the narrative of his life. The words themselves carry weight because they reflect an internal decision that has already been made. It's also important to recognize that words as commitment signals are often expressed in subtle ways. Not every man will say, "I choose you," or "I'm committed to you," especially in the early stages of a relationship. Instead, his choice is reflected in the language of thoughtfulness and consideration. Phrases like, "Would you like to join me?" or "I was thinking about you when," might seem casual, but they are verbal markers of prioritization. When a man consistently communicates in a way that centers you in his thoughts and plans, it reveals that he has already mentally chosen you as someone who matters deeply. Words like these function almost like a roadmap to his commitment. They show you where you stand in his mind before any formal declaration is made. It's worth noting that interpreting words correctly requires attention and awareness. Many people overlook these linguistic signals because they are subtle and easily dismissed as politeness or casual conversation. However, when you learn to read between the lines and recognize patterns, you can see commitment expressed clearly through language. The words themselves are not just empty sounds, they are reflections of his inner choices, intentions, and priorities. Understanding this allows you to differentiate between someone who is merely interested and someone who has already made the emotional decision to prioritize you. In essence, words are the bridge between thought and action. They reveal a man's internal choice long before it is fully manifested in external gestures. By paying attention to his language, you can gain insight into his emotional state, his intentions, and whether he has mentally chosen you. You learn to notice the shift from casual, self-focused language to inclusive, forward-looking dialogue. You start to see that the way he speaks is a reflection of where you stand in his life. Words as commitment signals are powerful because they reveal an unspoken truth. A man who consistently speaks in ways that include you, prioritize you, and consider your feelings has already made a choice. Understanding this is empowering. It allows you to respond with clarity, confidence, and emotional intelligence, and it gives you a framework to recognize commitment even before it is explicitly declared. When it comes to understanding a man's intentions, it's easy to focus on grand gestures or dramatic declarations of love. Many people assume that if he doesn't say something bold or perform something spectacular, his feelings are uncertain. The truth is, emotional commitment often expresses itself in far subtler ways, and recognizing these small signals can give you a clearer understanding of his intentions. Subtle communication is the quiet, almost unconscious ways a man shows he cares, prioritizes you, and has made a choice in his heart. Overt communication, on the other hand, is direct, intentional, and easily recognizable, like saying, "I love you," or planning a major event together. Understanding the difference between the two allows you to read the reality of his feelings with much greater accuracy. Subtle communication can be seen in the way he integrates you into his life without making an announcement about it. It could be as simple as asking for your opinion on a decision he's making, texting you first to check in, or remembering small details about you, our day that most people would forget. These moments, while understated, carry immense weight because they reflect a mental and emotional alignment that has already occurred. Unlike overt statements, which are intentional and sometimes performative, subtle communication emerges naturally when a man has genuinely chosen you. It is his default behavior rather than a conscious effort to impress or convince. The beauty of subtle signals is that they reveal consistency and authenticity. While overt declarations can sometimes be made out of obligation, desire for attention, or social expectation, subtle communication is harder to fake because it flows from genuine intention. For example, if he consistently checks in to see how you're feeling, incorporates your preferences into his plans, or adjusts his schedule to spend time with you, it demonstrates that his choice is deeply rooted. These small, repeated gestures signal that he is prioritizing your happiness and presence without needing to draw attention to himself. The words and actions may seem ordinary, but their consistency is what reveals true commitment. Overt communication, by contrast, serves a different purpose. It's valuable because it leaves little room for interpretation. When a man explicitly states his intentions or plans for the future, it is a direct affirmation of his choice. Saying something like, "I want you in my life long term," or "I'm planning my next steps with you in mind," is a clear, unambiguous signal. However, overt communication alone is not always enough to fully understand his level of commitment. Without consistency in subtle behaviors, overt statements can sometimes be empty or temporary. For instance, someone may say they want a future with you, but fail to demonstrate it in day-to-day interactions. This is why it's crucial to pay attention to both forms of communication together. Subtle cues act as a foundation, showing that his choice is genuine and ongoing, while overt statements confirm and reinforce the same message. When subtle and overt communication align, it's one of the strongest indicators that a man has mentally and emotionally chosen you. Conversely, if his words are overt, but his actions remain inconsistent, it signals a need for caution. Learning to observe and interpret these signals allows you to move past uncertainty and recognize the truth of his feelings. It's also important to recognize that subtle communication often reflects his emotional intelligence and comfort level with vulnerability. A man who can express care, thoughtfulness, and commitment without needing to broadcast it publicly demonstrates a secure, confident attachment. These small, quiet gestures show that he values your connection for its own sake, rather than for validation from others. Observing these patterns over time can teach you to trust his consistency and understand that his choice is not made lightly. Understanding subtle versus overt communication empowers you to respond with clarity and confidence. Instead of waiting for dramatic moments or searching for verbal declarations that may take time, you can read the truth in his everyday behavior and language. Recognizing subtle communication as a genuine signal of commitment allows you to step into the relationship with insight and discernment. You begin to see that emotional choice is not always loud or performative. It is often quiet, consistent, and deeply intentional. Subtlety in communication does not mean uncertainty. In fact, it often signifies the opposite, a man who has already made his choice and expresses it through thoughtful, natural, and ongoing behavior. When we talk about relationships, one of the most overlooked aspects is the psychology behind choice. Understanding a man's behavior and words becomes far clearer when you recognize that, at its core, commitment is a decision he makes consciously and unconsciously every day. The psychology of choice refers to the way a man mentally prioritizes you, weighs his feelings, and decides to invest in your connection, even before he explicitly states it. This choice isn't merely a reaction to attraction or convenience. It reflects a deep, often subtle, internal process where he determines that your presence, happiness, and future are integral to his own life. Recognizing this psychological process allows you to see commitment in a way that goes beyond surface-level gestures or statements. The first thing to understand is that emotional choice begins in the mind. A man doesn't just stumble into prioritizing someone. He mentally rehearses scenarios where you are included, imagines shared experiences, and evaluates how your presence affects his life. These mental exercises may happen without conscious awareness, but they influence his words, behaviors, and decisions. For example, when he talks about weekend plans, vacations, or even small daily routines, he naturally starts to include you in his vision of the future. This is a clear sign that he has mentally chosen you as someone important, someone whose presence he values and intends to nurture. Words and actions then become reflections of that internal decision. Another important aspect of the psychology of choice is the concept of exclusivity. When a man has mentally chosen you, he begins to measure his energy, attention, and emotional investment in ways that reflect that choice. He may prioritize your needs over casual distractions, consistently check in on your emotional state, or make sacrifices for your comfort and happiness. These are not obligatory actions, they are voluntary, stemming from an internalized commitment. His choice is reinforced each time he makes these decisions, creating a pattern of behavior that aligns with his mental and emotional intentions. Essentially, choice manifests through repeated, thoughtful actions that reveal where his priorities lie. The psychology of choice also explains why some men may struggle to articulate their commitment immediately. Internal choice can exist long before external confirmation occurs. He may already be committed emotionally and mentally, but factors such as past experiences, fear of vulnerability, or the pace of the relationship can delay overt declarations. Understanding this helps you interpret his words and actions more accurately. For instance, if he consistently demonstrates care, prioritization, and forward-looking behavior, even without a verbal promise, it often indicates that the choice has already been made internally. Recognizing this allows you to see the substance behind the timing, rather than waiting for explicit confirmation. The psychology of choice highlights that commitment is an active process, not a passive state. It involves continuous decisions to invest in you, nurture the connection, and maintain consistency in both thought and action. This is why repeated small gestures, inclusive language, and proactive engagement matter more than occasional grand declarations. Each decision reinforces his mental choice and demonstrates that you are not just a temporary interest, but someone he values deeply. By observing these patterns, you gain insight into the authenticity of his emotional investment. Understanding the psychology of choice empowers you to interpret relationships with clarity. Instead of measuring commitment solely by dramatic gestures or superficial actions, you learn to read the underlying decision-making process that governs his behavior. This awareness allows you to differentiate between fleeting attraction and deliberate emotional prioritization. When a man has mentally chosen you, his words, actions, and subtle behaviors align in a consistent pattern that reflects thoughtfulness, inclusion, and forward-looking planning. Recognizing this psychological reality provides a framework to understand his intentions without doubt or misinterpretation. The psychology of choice teaches that emotional commitment begins in the mind long before it is fully expressed outwardly. It is a process of continuous prioritization, mental rehearsal, and deliberate attention that manifests in consistent behaviors and thoughtful communication. When you understand this, you can see the signals of commitment clearly, even when they are subtle, and appreciate that a man who has chosen you has done so with intention, consistency, and care. Emotional safety is one of the most important, yet often overlooked indicators that a man has genuinely chosen you. While attraction and compatibility are important, a true sense of commitment emerges when you feel secure, valued, and understood in his presence. Emotional safety is not about grand gestures or verbal declarations alone. It is about the consistent feeling that you can be yourself without fear of judgment, abandonment, or rejection. When a man has mentally and emotionally chosen you, he creates this environment naturally because protecting the bond becomes as instinctive as expressing his affection. Recognizing emotional safety as a sign of commitment allows you to see beyond superficial behaviors and understand the depth of his investment. One of the clearest ways emotional safety manifests is through consistency. A man who has chosen you does not leave you guessing about his feelings or intentions. His words and actions align over time, which creates a predictable, stable environment. For example, if he follows through on promises, communicates openly about plans, and remains calm and patient even during disagreements, he is signaling that he values your emotional well-being. This consistency communicates that you are a priority and that he is committed not just in words but in thoughtful, deliberate actions. The predictability of his behavior reduces anxiety in the relationship, allowing you to trust that his choice is genuine and enduring. Emotional safety also involves vulnerability and openness. A man W. Ho has chosen you is willing to share his thoughts, feelings, and uncertainties because he trusts that you will not use them against him or dismiss him. This mutual vulnerability strengthens the bond and signals that he sees you as someone he can build a life with. When a man allows himself to be emotionally exposed, it demonstrates that he has made the conscious decision to prioritize your connection above self-protection or ego. In turn, this encourages reciprocity. Your own vulnerability is met with understanding rather than criticism, creating a safe, nurturing dynamic. Another aspect of emotional safety is attentiveness and active listening. When a man consistently pays attention to your words, remembers the details of your conversations, and responds with empathy, it shows that he values your inner world. These actions are not performative. They stem from a genuine investment in understanding and validating your emotions. Emotional safety arises when you know that your feelings matter to him, that disagreements can be handled respectfully, and that your perspective is not only acknowledged but integrated into his decision-making. This ongoing consideration reinforces that his choice to commit is not superficial, but deeply rooted in care and thoughtfulness. Emotional safety also means the freedom to express boundaries without fear of negative consequences. A man who has chosen you respects your limits and understands that healthy relationships require mutual respect. If you can communicate your needs, assert your preferences, or express discomfort without triggering anger, withdrawal, or manipulation, it is a strong indication that he is emotionally invested. He values the integrity of the relationship and your well-being over short-term impulses or control. This dynamic not only builds trust but also deepens emotional intimacy, demonstrating that his commitment is deliberate, thoughtful, and protective. Emotional safety is closely tied to the ability to envision a future together without doubt or hesitation. A man who has chosen you behaves in ways that make you feel secure in your role in his life, both emotionally and practically. This does not mean perfection, but it does mean a consistent effort to protect the relationship, communicate openly, and include you in his plans. When emotional safety is present, you are not constantly questioning his intentions or loyalty. Instead, you experience the quiet confidence that comes from knowing your place in his life has been intentionally chosen and nurtured. Emotional safety is a mirror of a man's internal commitment. It shows that he has made the mental and emotional choice to prioritize you, protect your bond, and foster a stable, nurturing environment. Recognizing emotional safety allows you to see the underlying structure of his commitment. A man who creates this environment is signaling, without needing dramatic words or gestures, that he has already chosen you as someone central to his life. Words are powerful, but they can sometimes be misleading if not accompanied by actions. A man might say all the right things, express affection, or even make promises, but the true measure of whether he has chosen you lies in the actions that back up those words. Decoding actions behind words is about understanding the alignment between what he says and what he consistently does. It's one of the clearest ways to determine genuine commitment because actions are the tangible reflection of internal decisions. By observing how his behavior matches or fails to match his language, you can see whether his choice is authentic, intentional, and sustainable. One of the most important aspects of decoding actions is consistency. A man who has truly chosen you will follow through on the things he says. If he expresses excitement about plans for the weekend, he will make the effort to keep those plans. If he talks about being there for you emotionally, he will respond when you need support, not just when it's convenient. The repeated alignment of words and actions over time demonstrates that his choice is not a fleeting impulse, but a deliberate and ongoing commitment. This consistency builds trust, which is the foundation of any long-term relationship. Without it, words remain hollow, regardless of how affectionate or passionate they may sound. Another key point is attentiveness to detail. Actions often reveal what a man values, even more clearly than verbal expressions. For example, remembering small but meaningful things about you, your preferences, routines, or little anecdotes, demonstrates that he listens, processes, and prioritizes you. If he acts on this knowledge, whether it's planning something you enjoy or making decisions that consider your feelings, it signals that his words about caring for you are backed by intentional effort. These small gestures might seem insignificant in isolation, but when repeated, they form a pattern that confirms his emotional choice and investment. Decoding actions also requires awareness of effort. Commitment is not passive, it requires conscious participation. A man who has chosen you will actively contribute to the relationship, rather than relying solely on verbal assurances. For instance, he will invest time in nurturing the connection, make compromises when necessary, and prioritize shared experiences. His effort reflects his mental and emotional decision to include you in his life and to make the relationship a meaningful part of his world. Without these efforts, even the most eloquent words cannot convey true commitment. Actions reveal not just intention, but also accountability, the willingness to turn feelings into tangible, reliable behavior. It's equally important to recognize actions that speak louder than grand declarations. While saying "I care about you" or "I am committed" can be impactful, the quieter, everyday actions often reveal the depth of choice more effectively. Showing up when it matters, being present during challenging times, and maintaining reliability in daily interactions are far more indicative of long-term commitment than occasional dramatic gestures. By decoding these actions, you can see the reality behind his words and gain confidence in the stability of his choice. Decoding actions behind words empowers you to interpret a man's intentions with clarity and discernment. It allows you to move past uncertainty, evaluate consistency, and understand the true depth of his emotional investment. When words and actions align, they form a powerful confirmation he has not only spoken about you, but has also embedded you into his life through tangible behaviors. This alignment is the hallmark of someone who has consciously and emotionally chosen you, creating both clarity and security in the relationship. Words alone are not enough to reveal a man's choice. They must be paired with deliberate, consistent, and thoughtful actions. By learning to decode these actions, you gain insight into the authenticity of his commitment. the depth of his emotional investment, and the intentionality behind his behavior. Observing how he supports, prioritizes, and includes you in his life reveals the truth of his choice in a way that words alone cannot. Actions become the most reliable signal that a man has already chosen you, transforming uncertainty into clarity and emotional ambiguity into certainty. Understanding when a man has truly chosen you comes down to clarity, awareness, and observation. It's not about waiting for grand declarations or relying solely on words. It's about noticing the alignment between his language, actions, and the way he prioritizes you consistently. The subtle signals, the inclusive words, the attentiveness, and the emotional safety he creates all paint a clear picture. He has already made a choice. Recognizing these signs allows you to step into the relationship with confidence and certainty, knowing that his commitment is intentional, thoughtful, and deeply rooted. By learning to decode his words and actions, you empower yourself to see the truth of his feelings without doubt or second guessing. Ultimately, when a man has chosen you, it shows in the way he integrates you into his life, cherishes your presence, and invests in your future together. And that clarity is a gift you can fully trust.